What up, Doe? Welcome to the Roar of the Lions UK podcast, episode number 92. It's like Takeshi's Castle, but this is the Lions iteration. My name's Matthew Turner alongside Ryan McCluskey, and if you are not familiar with the Takeshi's Castle franchise, that's a reference to the fact that nobody wins. Ryan, how you doing, man?
I'm drained. That really took it out of me. I'm recovering though, replenishing my fluids. Got a drink. Slowly coming around now, coming to terms with what they put us through. The emotional ringer.
Do you feel more drained from this game than you do from, say, the Eagles game before the bye, or do you genuinely feel better? It's just that you're hurting from not having won it.
No, I don't feel any better. I feel worse.
Oh man,
I do not feel good after that result whatsoever.
So can I get into why? Like, that seems like obviously, like, we're all desperate to miss 0-17, and I know it's not a 1 at the front of that record now, but surely it's better than a loss.
For me, it makes no difference. It's the same as a loss. It doesn't affect the draft stock. It still means we're winless. But the Lions currently don't have anyone that I trust to call plays. That was not a good debut performance calling players. The Lions need a passing coordinator, or they need to hire someone that understands it, because it was awful. That game, two teams did their best to not win that game. No one wanted to win it.
No, completely right. And I mean, Aubrey Pleasant is meant to be the passing game coordinator, isn't he? I'm sure he's the DB coach and passing game coordinator as a kind of joint title, but God knows we haven't seen that yet. Let's hit some of the housekeeping stuff before we really go ahead with this. So don't forget to hit up our Discord channel, fairly new but vibrant all the way through. Lots of chat about the game yesterday on there. We've got the College Football Podcast as well, coming up probably Wednesday, Thursday time, not really sure yet. But how was week 11 for you, Ryan?
Yeah, it was a very hectic week. Another week of lots of ranked losses, more upsets. I think the playoffs, the Heisman race is narrowed down now, I'd say, to two people. I think that is pretty much narrowing down. Like I said, the playoffs got a little bit clearer as well. I think they're starting to take shape, and I think the rankings as general, like the top 10 are kind of cementing their places as well. It was some crazy results. There was some just fantastic football played. There were some great individual performances, and there were some teams that just turned it together. Like, they pulled up for one another and they got the job done when the whole world had written them off. There was an amazing scoreline. Like, I enjoyed this week like no other. Especially, and also it was a good week for me too, personally.
Hey, all right, cool. I'm guessing, so the amazing scoreline is that the Florida game or was that Miami? I can never remember which one of those it is.
Neither. Was the Texas Longhorns.
Oh, okay. I swear there was one. Was there not like a game in Florida that ended like 70-52, and it was the most points conceded in a half in team history or something?
Yeah, Florida conceded the most points in a half in program history to an FCS team, which I'd define the head coach at halftime. It was horrible. They're a horrible team, and he's a horrible coach, and he's just ended his career.
Yeah, that's bad. I'm just trying to work out who the Heisman people are, because I get it's probably Kenneth Walker, because I can't see him falling out of it because it's Michigan State and he's just doing so well. But Oklahoma lost, right? So is that Bryce Young? Oklahoma? No.
Alabama.
That's Alabama.
Bryce Young and Kenneth Walker. and Kenneth Walker. It's them two now as they're trading blows week in, week out. Only one of them two can win it right now, I feel.
Fair enough. You'll hear more about that on the College Football Podcast coming up later on this week. Don't forget to hit that up, as well as like and sub on our YouTube channel, on the Twitch, on all the other good stuff. You know that really helps us out, and I appreciate you guys for doing that. And if you've missed it before, I'm going to keep hitting this one too. We are part of Lions Nation Unite. Great bunch of people and collaborators doing that. So don't forget to download the app. Check us out on there, along with Micro Mike and all the other big YouTubers who are on there too. Right, Paul's virtual pub quiz is absolutely right. We are talking about the Detroit Lions. Beg your pardon. College football, though, very important for the Lions because at 0-8-1, draft prospects are going to be big, and it's just around the corner for us now with, us being mathematically out of the playoffs now at 0-8-1. Maybe I'm being premature on that. Maybe we can win all of our games and be 8-8-1 and somehow sneak in, but I just don't feel like that's true. So, out of the playoffs, draft's the next big thing. But you're right, let's talk about the Lions. Let's hit the news first, and then we're going to go into Lions at Steelers review. So, MCDC, as Ryan alluded to earlier, took over the offensive play calling. Not entirely. He did reveal that, there was a collaborative effort with calling plays. He might pass the green dot for a play or two to A-Lin or to someone else. It wasn't necessarily limited to those two guys. He actually revealed A-Lin earlier on in the week that this had been happening all season, that Dan Campbell would chime in with a play or two when he felt like he needed to, and this was just a rebalancing of something that Dan wanted to do for this game because he felt like it might bring something different if he was going to be doing that. In terms of whether he's going to be doing that going forward, he said he would evaluate how it went, perhaps compare it to how it's gone in the past and see whether he can refine his process, whether A-Lin can refine his process and come up with what he thinks is going to be the best chance of winning going forward. But let's stick on that point first. You said you weren't impressed with the play calling in this game.
No, not whatsoever. It was, despite a breakout performance from Swift, it was one of the most predictable games we've ever seen. We've become the most predictable offense in football. They never felt any threat whatsoever that we were going to pass that ball. I just don't like mixed messages. We're told that he was injured and it affected the passing game, but then we're told, no, he's good, he can stay in, but then they don't trust him to throw the ball. He gets up and winces, but we've got a quarterback with an arm on the sideline that could actually throw the ball maybe more than 3 to 5 yards. Too many excuses. There was just, I just don't understand. I just question why he's protecting Goff and why he's putting his confidence and credentials in front of all of the team. Like, it's like he's wrapping him in cotton wool, but he's hurting the rest of the lineup. Like, because he doesn't want to hurt his confidence. He doesn't want to show any sort of ill will against him. Like, pull the guy out. He was hurt. He came up wincing constantly. He was wrapped up literally around his waist because he could barely move. And then he let him make a sack. If Goff had got hurt, that would have been Dan Campbell's fault. And I could see it coming that we killed the line okay, but the moment that sack happened, I thought, if he seriously gets hurt, I'm going to blame Dan Campbell for not pulling him out of there sooner. So the whole mismanagement there just really irritated me. Obvious passing situations, like 4th down, 4th and 1, like they just try to run the ball. 3rd and 15, 3rd and 20, 4th and 20. Running the ball against a strong defensive front with a running back that, with no disrespect to him, weighs about as much as a few bags of sugar. Like, he gets in free space, but he can't run against some tackles. It was awful. The fact he managed to break out a few runs and we had one of the best days running the ball ever was nothing to do with the play calling. It was just great individual efforts. The offensive line. But no, the play calling for me just killed us.
Yeah, it was an interesting one. I mean, there, like you said, there were multiple instances where we called run on 3rd and long. And, looking at the game, we converted on 4 of 18, but 2 of 2 on 4th. And I think in situations that we shouldn't have completed, and looking at what Goff did when we did pass in those situations and we didn't convert most of them, that actually, I did feel like running the ball gave us a better chance of converting in that situation. But what does that say about our offense? I mean, I think that Dan is a pragmatist. I think he's going to do what he can to win, no matter how it looks. So I think he looked at Goff and said, well, this ain't doing it, so I'm going to do it this way. And, we got 10 rushing first downs versus 5 passing first downs. That tells a massive story, but, well, it tells a story of the passing attempts as well, but we'll come on to that in a minute. Let's move quickly on to injuries, and I'm sure we'll get back into that in a minute. There were several for the Lions. Jamar Jefferson pulled up after his long touchdown. I think in his actually, I need to check this just because I want to make sure. But Jermar Jefferson, 7th round pick this year, not really trusted throughout the season so far to do much. His 2021 season stats: 5 attempts, 47 yards, 2 touchdowns. Probably goes down, if he no longer plays a snap for the Lions, as one of the most efficient runners in the team history. And I mean, the guy just he was perhaps put in a box as a one-cut merchant who has good vision but not top rate speed. But he showed that maybe one cut is all you need if it's effective, right?
Yeah, they were one cut runs. Like he was told a hole, he took the hand off, he cut, hit the hole. It was essentially a straight line, and then it was a foot race. And they got hold of him. They managed to bring him down almost, but he managed to just get into the end zone. So it turned into a foot race. So the stat line is very efficient. I think when you get into the red zone, he looks like an actual capable weapon because he's willing to take that hit. He knew he was going to get hit. He got wrapped up. Unfortunately, it left him getting carted off. Hopefully, hopefully it's not that serious as we hope. Maybe it's just a few weeks, but he took one for the team and he got his touchdown. So he can't. That's what a 7th rounder does. They come in, they take their chances because they're limited snaps. They may not see him on the field all that much, but he makes it count when it happens. So that's all we can ask of the guy so far.
Absolutely.
He's willing to do the dirty work.
And up the gut too, someone between the tackles who can really do it. So that's really, really impressive. So on the long touchdown run, he was rolled up on by a Steeler, tackling him from behind, kind of went down on his ankle, looked really bad actually at first look, although Ant did just shout at us earlier saying he's only going to be out a couple of weeks. I haven't seen a source on that, but I'm going to trust that he's seen one. So hopefully, fingers crossed, he's not going to be out for too long, and potentially Jamal's going to be back. He's been out for 3 weeks now. So 3 weeks, 2 weeks. So God knows how long Jamal's going to be out for. But he was, ably replaced by Godwin Igwebuike for at least a couple of snaps. We'll talk about that in a minute. Tracy Walker left the game with a possible concussion. He laid on 3 massive hits during the game, but the biggest was on Steelers quarterback Mason Rudolph as he kind of set off on one of his soul-destroying runs. Rudolph is an absolute beast. I mean, the hit was massive, and he just walked off like nothing had happened. And Walker's lying there like he had that sort of like thing that happens when someone's being concussed and they kind of like, oh god, that looks really bad. But Walker did then tweet the day after the game, or said something to someone after the game, basically saying, "I'm going to be fine." Well known that concussion symptoms actually show up several days after the event, so no certainty that he actually will be fine. But he came off worse because his technique was perhaps... It was a reckless way of going into the tackle. He did get his head to the side, so it wasn't full-on crown, but went into his shoulder. And, it's slightly on him, right? A bit.
It's all on him. It's all on him. He's a very sloppy tackler. You look at his big hits, and he does not protect himself. I knew full well this was going to come. When I saw the first hit on the other side, when he smacked the running back out of play, I thought, there's no form. He does not care about form tackles. He doesn't want to wrap up. I love the guy, but when we saw him hit Rudolph, he bounced off him, he went limp. We all tweeted, we all put in chat, like, he's done. He won't be allowed to come back because he went limp. Like, he was pretty obviously out for a few seconds. It's all right him saying he'll be back next week, but unfortunately that's not his decision. He won't get that to say. Like, he'll be on the medicals. It could be later on side effects after concussions, but I would love to re-sign him. I'd love to keep him, but he has to cut that out. And he loves the big play. He loves the highlight reel smack where everyone hears it, but he's going to do one too many times. And like the next minute, you won't know what day it is, what year it is, or what stadium he's in. It's worrying over a long extended period. I'm hoping now this has made him realise that he needs to probably tone it down a bit or protect himself just a little bit better.
I know what he's doing, right? You kind of get taught that in the situation where you can no longer use your helmet as a weapon, effectively, you're now trying to hit the ball with your head. And you could see that that's exactly where he was aiming for. but just kind of didn't quite get it right. And, you know, even doing that as a technique is dangerous for the defender. So, you know, you got to take a decision on whether winning a game or potentially shortening your life is more important. Ashley said the source on the injuries is MCDC's presser today, where he said he doesn't expect anyone who got banged up to be out for long. Third guy who got banged up was Jerry Jacobs, who'd been burnt once in coverage, but otherwise had a very, very solid game. Exited halfway through the third quarter, maybe ended the third quarter. I didn't see exactly what he was injured with, just seemed to disappear from the game. But that is encouraging that Dan thinks that they're not going to be out for too long. Ashley says anyone who could take a helmet whack from Myles Garrett must be a beast. Yeah, I mean, a beast and a racist, but never mind. Let's carry on. Going into the game, inactives. So mentioned earlier, Jamal Williams inactive. Josh Reynolds inactive, maybe a slight surprise. People thought he might come in with a limited snap count, but clearly not ready to go as yet. Also, recently activated Kevin Strong misses out. Maybe he hasn't quite practiced enough or has enough. I can't believe he doesn't know the playbook enough. So I was surprised that Kevin Strong didn't suit up. Austin Bryant carrying an injury didn't suit up, and Jesse Lemonnier didn't make the roster given the other people sitting out. With Bryant and Lemonnier out, that only left 3 edge outside linebacker players active for the game. That did mean that Deshaun Hand saw a bit more play time as a 4th guy on the defensive line when we went into a 4-3, which happens often in this game. It did mean, with those inactives, that Taylor Decker was active for this game. As you all know, it ended 16 all after overtime. And I think the tying kick, I want to see the play-by-play because I can't quite remember when the tying points came. Field goal.
Third quarter, I feel like it was. Maybe it ended at third.
11:30 in the fourth. So 3.5 minutes into the fourth quarter, and there were no further points. So 3 points were scored from the Lions' touchdown. No, sorry, the Pittsburgh field goal, the first possession of the second half for them after our touchdown. Only 3 more points in the entire game. So both defenses really tightened up in this game. Early on, you know, it looked like it was going to be a really high-scoring game. The Steelers came out, touchdown, first drive, and busted coverage in the end zone. I mean, I thought it was going to be a long day from there. Washington just completely open. I can't quite work out yet who had the busted coverage. It looked like it might have been Walker. It looked like it might have been the nickelback, Parker, AJ Parker. I can't quite decide, but it was not a good way to start, was it?
No, it wasn't surprising because busted coverages have, especially early on, like when we start games notoriously and nefariously bad in general. Like we often fall behind fairly quickly. So it was, and especially when a quarterback like Mason Rudolph, in no disrespect, the guy sucks. So his confidence went through the roof. That was a great drive to settle him in. So seeing a wide open busted coverage for a quarterback that's not very good, that's like giving candy to a baby. His eyes like had dollar bills in because that was a great start for them.
It was just start.
And I expected, I thought I'm going to turn this game off by halftime. I thought they're now going to just pound it down our throats and it's going to be another long day at the office, which it still was, but it wasn't as punishing scorelines I thought it would be.
It was punishing for a different reason. In this first drive, there was the Armani interception, which was pulled back for a kind of no-look DPI, if you remember that, in the very first drive. You're a DB. What did you feel on that? Because I saw several people on Twitter give an opinion, which I think, having looked back at it, is entirely wrong. But live, I didn't think he made contact before. What did you see?
It was hard. I thought at the time watching it live that it was very harsh. I know it didn't look, but you don't always have to look. If you make it clear and obvious that you're waiting on the receiver to show you when the ball is coming and you don't play the man first, you can usually get away with those. So that was unfortunate. That was a break I felt like they got. But the game panned itself out. The officials actually gave us hella breaks. There were some really bad calls, I thought, in that game.
Yeah, the officials had a bad game in our favour for once. But on the Armani interception, which was pulled back for this DPI, loads of people on Twitter saying it was harsh. I think Jeremy Reisman tweeted out saying, "Oh look, there's a no contact DPI." I must disagree. There was significant contact before the ball got there, and it wasn't bang bang. It was very much, I'm colliding with you, and now I'm going to pick the ball off. It was not good cover. Well, it was good coverage, which was just half a second too early. You can play coverage that way, and that's fine, but you must not contact the man significantly before the ball gets there, and he did. So that was unfortunate, but I wanted to clear that up. Just having a look through the rest of the plays for something that was noticeable, Oruwariye had a good game generally. I thought a few pass breakups. He had a really nice tackle for a loss on a wide receiver screen. Let's talk about the interception. The only interception of the game, Mason Rudolph overthrowing, Aquara dropping into coverage. We've been worried about these outside linebackers having to play in coverage, and he dropped back quickly and was there to make the play.
It was a horrible throw. Aquara didn't really have to do much, to be honest. It was Johnny on the spot, as you'd say in football. He was the fox in the box poaching. The ball just dropped to him. It was an awful overthrow. It must have gone at least 3 yards deeper than it had to. And the fact Aquara was just there to just rally it in, I think showed exactly what we expected from Rudolph. He can't be trusted, but it was a nice, fortunate break for a team that does not get turnovers. We had 9 pass breakups in this game. All year, we had 22. So that tells you how good we were at playing the ball and dropping into coverage for once, which is something we don't often say. So I think it was great. And it's nice for Aquara. All these injuries mean he's getting more playing time. He's now got a sack and an interception. From someone that we didn't see at all in year 1 to a guy that's kind of niching himself a little bit of a role in year 2. Can't be sniffed at. Given that, he'll take it. Amani gets a lot of these interceptions, gets a lot of praise, so we have to do the same to Aquara. Like we don't always make huge plays, but we get these breaks, and when we're giving them, when they're put on a plate to us, we say thank you very much.
Absolutely. The next significant play was, I think, the next play, 1st and 10 after the punt resulting from the interception. First play, 1st and 10 near midfield. Goff underthrows Raymond. I'm going to quickly tell you what I saw before you go into it, because I know you have a different opinion to me. Goff should make the play. I'm not going to say he shouldn't make the play, but he drops back, he has time to throw, and the Steelers defender gets right up in his face and contacts his arm in the follow-through. So it's going to be underthrown. It's going to lack a little bit of velocity. I know he's so far open, and to be honest, he should have gotten the ball away quicker. But from what happened, I can see why it dropped short. It didn't drop short because Goff mechanically fails. It's just more that he needed to be half a second quicker, and he just wasn't for me. I don't know if that's what you saw as well.
I'll give him the benefit of the doubt on that. Yeah, he should have got it off quicker. It would have been a walk-in touchdown. It was lucky it wasn't intercepted because it fell that short. So we got a real break there. We know Goff hates pressure. Anyone in his face, it blows up the whole play. If he gets it off 1 second sooner, hopefully he drops it in the basket to walk-in touchdown. But it's just a play we'll never know. Raymond, that was probably the only play of the game where we actually got in behind the safety and took a shot. And that was the most disappointing thing. That if that had been the only touchdown passing of the game, I'd have been really happy because we took a shot. But no, it didn't pay off, and we didn't see anything like that again.
Yeah, it was the only instance I can think of too. I mean, there weren't many passing attempts, so...
Yeah. And he got hurt on that play. I think that's the play where he goes down, he gets up and he goes, hurts his back. And then from then on, it was wrap him in cotton wool.
Yeah, very much protect Goff, but not entirely. Next play, the next play that was significant is the Jefferson touchdown. And, I mean, as much as it was Jefferson with a great run and explosion once he got beyond the first level, the reason he had the room is that Matt Nelson was in as the 6th lineman to seal off. And for all that Matt Nelson has been maligned this year, by us in particular, but by pretty much everyone giving up pressures, the Lions played a significant number of snaps with 6 linemen. The third highest rated guy on the offense was Will Holden, playing 10 snaps, and then Matt Nelson for 18 snaps because Nelson got injured. So that sixth lineman come in, and they both had terrific games in the run game, sealing off the edge. It seemed to give us the edge, Ryan.
No, I agree. It's weird. They suck as offensive linemen, but if one of them wants to make a career as a blocking tight end, which the players essentially were, we had lots of players where they were like a third tight end, and he cut across. It was like a pulling motion, and then he sealed the edge in. And I know there was a hole spread out then between, I think it was the left of the center. It was a wide open hole, like I think three of them combined to create a huge play. Jefferson could have packed a bus through that hole. It was really good. But it was very obvious to see. There was another play later on with like Swift where it was obvious there was three tight ends there, and we just let him walk it behind them patiently. It was a big factor on the day that we just let Swift follow these big blockers, and we put him in as ineligible receivers, just use lots of offensive linemen. I suppose it's carving out roles for these guys. Like if they can do that, if they're able and athletic enough to pull as a guard, as an extra lineman, or motion as a blocking tight end, I'll take it. Especially if we want to play a power run offense. If we want to run like I formation with someone like Godwin or Jefferson, then it's going to create big holes.
I mean, can you imagine if we had a passing offense that was at least mildly respected? Because they're doing this with the box being fairly stacked too. Like, it wasn't like Pittsburgh were dropping into coverage entirely. They were doing this against a defense that was expecting this.
Oh yeah, being a Pittsburgh defender was easy. Like that was one of the easiest games they'll play because no one respects the Lions passing game. You don't have to bother dropping linebackers into coverage because it's pointless. If you're not going to use Hockenson, then you stack the box. And I counted, I think, 7-8 guys in the box for a good 89% of the players. They knew what were coming full well. We kept running the ball until they stopped us, and it didn't really stop us in the end. We stopped ourselves, which is kind of good but annoying. But no, if we had a passing game that someone respected, you could almost say that this is an unpredictable offense. But until that happens, we'll keep running it until a team stops us.
The next drive was the start of something really bad which happened throughout the game, which is the Lions getting drawn offside again and again and again. 2 instances in this drive, but then several other instances of 12 men, or I think there were a couple of other offsides too. The defense played really well through this game in terms of, yes, Rudolph could have maybe executed better than he did, and there were a couple of open receivers he missed, but that's going to happen in a game. It just does by the law of averages. But they tightened up and conceded only 16 points to a Steelers team that had won the last 4 games in a row. So the defense played quite well, but their discipline, I mean, we've been talking about this team can't hurt itself because it needs to play almost perfectly, and normally when we were talking about that, we were talking about offense, and Hock did not have a good game in that respect too. He didn't have a good game generally, but flags-wise, he had a bad game. But the defense in general was being caught offside so often, giving Rudolph, just the plays where he could just chuck it up and hope his receivers would get it in the end zone. And fortunately for us, it never came to fruition. In fact, one was a really weak offensive pass interference, which should never have been called. But I mean, we've got to tighten up, and I'm starting to worry about our discipline on the defensive line. And it's Todd Wash, isn't it, the defensive line coach from the Jacksonville Jaguars last year, the defensive coordinator. He's got to get his boys disciplined, looking at the ball and not at anything else that's happening.
I'm worried about discipline in general. We are one of the worst disciplined teams in the league. I'm pretty sure it was either halfway through the first half, around half, we had like 44 penalty yards against us, somewhat ridiculous. Like, it's atrocious. This team, I don't know what you do. Dan Campbell must tell them week, like, stop making bonehead, stupid moves. Stop false starting. Stop jumping over the line before the ball is snapped. Like, there's only so many times you can tell players. And these are veterans as well. I think it was against the Eagles. It was Brockers that was getting called for offside. These aren't young players. These are experienced. These are veterans. Something is not going right. We're not getting the snap counts right, or we're getting over the line and not getting back quick enough. 12 men on the field again.
Yeah.
I think that's either 3 or 4 times this year. A team should go through a season and you should never get called for that. Now, is it the players that are too slow to get off, or is it Aaron Glenn calling substitutes too late or calling the wrong people to come off? It's got to be a combination of either, but something has got to give. How this defense gave up 16 points when they started on 1st and 5 multiple times, the Steelers, and still had to punt or go for field goals is beyond me, because they dug themselves a serious hole, and they still managed to come out of it somehow smelling our roses. But against good teams, that's why we shipped 40 points. Bad teams, we might catch breaks. But if Big Ben was in that game, I think we'd have got crucified. So, and Claypool. But no, we caught breaks, but we've just got to stop getting behind the chains on both sides of the ball. And right now, I just don't think that's going to happen. I think it's going to continue all the way through the year until something gives.
I think it's going to be until the first win's on the board. Honestly, I don't think it's going to change because of this result. I think that the entire team can feel it, the desire to win a game and to perhaps be the hero themselves, to help out the team and be the talisman that everyone can kind of, what's the word that I'm looking for? To just to be the leader, the talisman. That's what I mean. I said that before, but you can be the talismanic defender to make that one play that makes everyone else go, yeah, we're going to do this. And the eagerness to do it is kind of overwhelming them a bit. Like, you can feel the burden of being winless on every single player. Like, it's affecting them. No? I don't buy it. Okay, I thought
I understand
you.
I get that, but also at the same point, like, if you're chasing your first win, like, you have to be ultra disciplined. If you know things aren't going your way, like, you can't afford to give away this cheap. It's momentum as well. You lose momentum. It's 2 sides of the same coin. You want to be the person, but then you get jumpy and you get overexcited. But then also you've got to be more grounded when you're skidding and losing games weekly, and you want to win, but you're digging yourself holes every week. The grave just gets deeper with every flag. And especially with this offense, like, it's just not built to play from 1st and 15, and it never will be 1st and 20. It hurts. Whenever you see a flag thrown, you can pretty much usually say with 89% of the time it's on us.
Yeah, that's fair.
We shouldn't be saying that.
So there's a couple of points from Dan on the Twitch chat I just want to highlight. First, he said, Ben does not push the needle for the Steelers either. Sorry, preseason be damned. I mean, he did slice and dice us in the preseason, but I don't know. I would have agreed with you in the first 3 weeks, but he's kind of come to life a little bit. He's not the Ben he used to be, but I think he does enough for this offense. Like, he's not Drew Brees, but he's made the most of Najee Harris. Like, he can put the ball in front of him in rhythm, and that's how this offense is ticking. So I think he moves the needle a bit. I'm not going to say it's overwhelmingly so over Rudolph, but it's somewhat significant. If it wasn't true, they would have cut him rather than reducing the amount on his deal. Like, they would have just said, right, we'll run with Rudolph the whole year. So I don't buy that. But he does say, hey guys, are the Steelers a relegation team? I feel like, I asked because this felt like a relegation 6-pointer. Did we make them play worse? Did we play better? Did you pick the Steelers to win? I think it's important to acknowledge this point. So, did it feel like a kind of battle of the bottom for you?
Yeah, this felt like Norwich v Burnley. To put it in football terms, it was. This felt like a game that neither team could afford to lose. So they almost played out the draw. In the final few minutes of that overtime quarter, no one wanted to risk it. Even though there were turnovers, they still played so safe. It felt too safe at times. Did we make them look good? Did we make them look bad? I'd say it's a mixture of everything. We looked good, but they didn't play well. We didn't play well at times. They made us look good. It was very even contest. It lacked quality completely across the board. It was one of the hardest watches I've ever had. I mean, offensively, there was very little offensive quality. It was painful at times. Defensively, their front was good. We did pretty well on the back end, which is often said. When Will Harris has one of his best games of his career, I know that the team we're playing well didn't play against. He's one of the worst safeties in the league, and they made him look really good. He did have a nice turnover, but I can guarantee in a week again, he'll probably stink. He was a nice shine beacon of hope for 1 week, but I think that tells us how much they played down to our level, and we just weren't able to just get out of our own heads almost.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, so I'm gonna, make a confession that I'm the guy who found the Pats Rams 13-3 Super Bowl one of the more compelling ones I've ever watched, because I love gritty defensive football. So I actually really enjoyed this game, I'm going to confess, because it just had a bit of everything, and I really like the close games, and I don't really care how they come about. So Stafford 2016 was just like heaven for me, because you know what? We were behind every single game, but 8 comeback wins, fantastic. This game felt a bit like a throwback to that. No thanks to the quarterback, but just the way in which it kind of to and fro, you didn't know who was going to win all the way through. And then I was listening on with Pride of Detroit, and Chris Buffett halfway through the fourth says, well, this is just ending in a tie. I don't see any other way. And bastard was right, but never mind. Right, so next phase of play was the start of something else which was fairly consistent from then on, which was Goff not recognising blown plays. So, first and goal, run was no good. Second and goal, screen pass almost intercepted because he didn't realise that Swift had not gotten to where he needed to be, but he threw it anyway. And then several times later on, I remember a screen play to Hock, where Hock hadn't managed to finish his block on the edge, who had diagnosed the play. And he managed to throw it where Hock should have been if he finished his block, but it ended up hitting his defensive lineman, who got out in front, but should have been intercepted. And a couple of other times as well. Under pressure, not recognising the fact the play is blown, and still throwing a pass that should have ended in maybe multiple pick sixes in this game.
Yeah, Goff should have had at least maybe 3 interceptions in this game. If the Steelers actually knew how to catch across the board on the defense, or they'll penalty that didn't go our way, there would have been multiple interceptions. We have got screens aren't working. Screens have barely worked all year. Against the Eagles, we tried screens and they blew them up constantly. I don't know why we keep going to that well, because it's dry. It's bone dry. There's nothing there. This is the Sahara. So stop trying it. There was a screen where I think Swift almost got destroyed because Sewell didn't get there. He didn't get to the block. It just to rode over him. I remember the nickel came down. I think it was Pierre, and he smacked Swift, and he could have easily dislodged that ball. He was very lucky it didn't come out. It's just, why do we only have this sheet of 10 players on it? And we just kind of cycle through it until one of them works, and we go back to the beginning, and screens just aren't working right now. We've got to get away from them. It's so predictable.
But on the limited playbook, and this was something actually I was going to come on to in a bit, because I'll just methodically go through the game, but I've got to highlight it now because you're talking about the limited amount of plays that are on there. Games on the line, going down into the fourth quarter, dying out for something that perhaps we haven't seen so far to take them by surprise, ultimately predictable all the way through. And then, first play of overtime is a deep play action pass to Amon-Ra St. Brown for 35 yards. Where the hell was that? Clearly, even if you just do 10 plays most of the time, these things are in the locker, but you're not going to do it in regulation. Why keep it in your back pocket for overtime? What's the point?
That pissed me off more than anything. That play, why didn't we run that in the fourth quarter? When we needed to get in field goal range and we got a 17-yard gain, we just kept running. Where was that crossing route then that split the linebackers? Why dial it up in garbage time? Okay, we may have won the game eventually, but overtime is garbage time. That's not when you roll out the the fancy wheels, because that tells me that were you just trying to play prevent and not lose because they were too scared to lose, so they didn't play it in the fourth. If we try that in the fourth and it don't go well, we get intercepted and we lose, at least we tried. At least we tried to make something happen, and we didn't just keep settling.
So moving on, then I'm going to try and carry on progressively into the second half now. And Godwin Igwebuike had a lovely run for a first down, and then backed that up a play or two later with the 42-yard run. He kind of got contacted at the line, but sidestepped out of it. And then the burst of acceleration was fantastic. And then I'm not sure his footwork perhaps was the cleanest, but it did enough to fool the defender and get in. I mean, the guy ended up our highest rated player per PFF, 93.9. But he only played 4 snaps. 1 went for a first down, 1 went for a touchdown. Do you think that we've gotten this all wrong, that actually Igwebuike and Jefferson are bloody good running backs who need a little bit more time? Or what happened there?
I don't know. As you say, the play when it got handed off looked bust because the hole had a Pittsburgh Steeler in it. Now, the defender doesn't wrap up. He completely whiffs on the tackle, and Godwin sneaks through. He bursts through. And I think the footwork was totally planned. He put Minka Fitzpatrick on skates who fell flat on his ass about 3 yards away from him because he completely was off balance. It was a fantastic run. It made him look silly, and I loved every minute of that. He kind of like, when we see him return kickoffs, and like, I sometimes think, God, he's a bit slow because his first 10 yards, he looks really sluggish. Like when he's building up, but then suddenly, once he gets further, he's got a bit of burst of speed. But we don't usually see that because the punts and the kickoff returns, like, he's not getting that much ground to work up a bit of momentum. But it feels like a bit of a freight train. Like once he kind of gets chugging, maybe there's an extra gear. So I don't think he should be returning. I think Raven should be doing all the returning. But Godwin, maybe he's got something in the tank. Maybe this is the kind of guy that should be rotating with Swift more if whatever Jamal's doing, whenever Jamal's back. I'd love to see Godwin get more touches, especially going through the tackles. He wants to hit the hole through the tackles. He's another one-cut guy. That's what we don't have right now, and I'd like to see just take the load off Swift a bit. 36 touches was fantastic, but it was way too many trying to run through the A, B, and C gap because he was getting smacked by linemen. Too many tackles for losses. We're going to end up breaking the poor kid. So let's just see more Godwin next week because we just saw exactly what he can do on 2 players where he gained about 58 yards and a touchdown because he's got that burst of speed.
Yeah, he really does. And I don't know, the thing about the returning actually was very stark in this game. We were in good field position most of the game because Godwin and Raymond returned really well most of the time, getting at least beyond the 30, but a few times getting more towards the 40, 50-yard line. And I thought that was really stark, that out of all of the coaches that are there, and we've given praise to Aaron Glenn for the work he's done with the secondary, to Hank Fraley for the work he's done with the offensive line, Pleasant with the DBs as well, but Dave Phipp has to be up there as one of the coaches of the year so far because that special teams unit we thought was really good last year. And I think it's always going to be hard moving on from Prater. It's then going to be even harder when the replacement kicker you've settled on gets COVID and then gets injured in a season. But, you know, aside from the fact that you're on your 3rd, 4th, 5th kicker of the year, and, you know, he's not the guy making the personnel decisions, he's just the coordinator, and the holds and the snap were fine for the 2 kicks he missed. But when we're talking about punting teams and kickoff teams, we look fantastic. People making open field tackles, we regularly had them within the 20, and we were regularly at the 30 and 40-yard line.
I think that's been the only constant since, like, you've had, like, say, Jim Schwartz and that. Like, for the last 5-10 years, the Lions have been good at special teams. I don't remember a year where we've been really bad. It's kind of like the one constant. We've got one of the league's best punters. It doesn't help when you almost break the record for punts in a game because we had 10. The record's at like 11. So we know how good Jack Fox is, but we see him way too often. But I feel like we didn't have to change much from last year. As you say, we had Braden Coombs. We were returning well with Agnew. It's kind of been like for like replacement with Godwin and Raymond. Things just doing well. We're not getting penalties. We're getting penalties every phase, but not special teams, which is somehow weird because it's so much easier to get called for holding or a block in the back. But as you say, there was one where the punt, I think, makes a huge tackle. I thought Raymond was taking that kick to the house. That was a fantastic tackle from Preyton Presler. But no, we've got two electric guys and they've got good hands as well. I just trust them. I don't feel like they're going to put one on the ground like Agnew used to. So right now, it's a very consistent part on the field where I was hoping we wouldn't have to talk about Santoso, but it's kind of like the deciding factor. So we're going to have to, aren't we?
We are, but maybe we'll hit that a bit later. So Mason Rudolph scrambling was a big part of this game. So obviously we talked about the fact that, Walker, which actually happened a little bit later on in the game, he went off injured after a scramble. But Rudolph actually kind of rolled out to the right on a particular play I remember, had two lines in front of him, kind of pump faked and then reversed field. And I mean, he should have been sacked, but somehow turned into like a 20, 25 yard gain. Like, he's not fast. What happened? Like, I don't really want to spend any time on Rudolph running because it's pointless, but that hurt us. I put us behind the sticks when, they should have been the ones behind the sticks because we actually got the plays we got pressure, Rudolph managed to run out of them.
Yeah, he's got surprisingly mobile escapability. Yeah, I didn't actually know he had that in Orca, to be fair. The fact we couldn't keep contained and we let him get outside and he saved all that clock as well because he was getting out of bounds. He was stopping the clock. Like, that was the one time where we let ourselves down. We just could not keep contained on the edge. When we got through and we got to him, he was able to escape. Like I say, no sacks. We barely laid a hand on the guy, but we were in his face at least 3-4 times by line of scrimmage. So that was finishing. Finishing was really bad.
Yeah. So moving on in the game, there's a couple of kind of just bits that maybe I'll just mention without discussing. So PBU by Jacobs, PBU by Armani. Rudolph should have hit a touchdown. McLeod open in the end zone. Short throw, just kind of threw it short. That happens. He's not the best quarterback in the world, and he kind of proved it. We took a delay of game on 4th and 5, trying to draw them offside, but kind of had the play call in a bit too late to actually try and do it properly, which sucked. But oh well, if we were punting, then we were punting. But on 4th and 5, it feels like the sort of area where we should have gone for it. Perhaps at the area where we've gone for it in the past. I think it was on the 40. And it's a 57-yarder. And I believe that Santoso was making them from 54, 55 comfortably in practice, in just before the game. So 57, 58, maybe you can just about go for the field goal. But if you accept you can't go for the field goal, I feel like punting's the worst of both choices. So,
and what happened on the punt? Bloody Trinity Benson, we got a huge flag, which made the punt totally irrelevant because we didn't get any field advantage, did we? He didn't establish himself. We took a penalty, which negated the. I think didn't we get the ball down at the 1, but he had 1 foot in the end zone. He didn't re-establish himself in play. So then I think it gave him they started as a touchback 25. So we gained 20 yards, which meant we should have gone for it.
Yeah.
All that play was a bit of a disaster, really.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. He got 1 foot down inside just, but he couldn't get the second one. And I think it was Cadarrell Hodge as opposed to Benson, I think. But, it's one of the two shitty wide receivers on our roster. So, never mind. Doesn't matter who.
Also, have we drawn anyone offside all year? I feel like we keep trying it and we suck. We don't have a good hard count. They just don't fear us. There's no reason to jump playing the Lions, unfortunately.
Yeah, but the thing is, if teams are prepared for that, if they know we are not running a play, considering the fact that we were doing draw plays on 3rd and long, we are committed to the chess match. They're not expecting the run here. Let's run, because they're not expecting it, and hopefully you'll get something. So, why not snap it? the play call should be try and draw them offside, and if the play clock goes down to 2, snap the ball. Like, just do it, because if they're not expecting it, we'll probably convert then. So, I don't know. I despair of it when sometimes you try and play the chess match, but you stop doing it when you don't feel like it. And it's like, play the game. Just like, you're trying to win. You're not trying to draw.
Plus the clock management, a lot of times has been bad. We're getting the play call in and like they're setting the line with like 9 seconds to go. You don't even have time to draw them offside. And then like now we're taking delay game, or we're having to waste a timeout because we've not drawn them offside and aren't ready to even take a play and turn over on downs. It's just a total fuck up on all parts, unfortunately.
Yeah, right. So in that Steelers 6th possession, I mentioned just before that Jacobs had a PBU and Amani had a PBU. On the Steelers' 7th possession, Jerry Jacobs had a PBU, Amani had a PBU and a 3 and out. I mean, back-to-back possessions for the Steelers with back-to-back PBUs for both players. I thought this is when we really started to step it up on defense. The Steelers looked like we were getting stronger throughout the game on defense. Both sides were, but really encouraging from both cornerbacks. I mean, I've been hard on Amani, but this is perhaps one of his better games. Moving on to the Lions' 8th possession, TJ Watt got the sack on Goff, was injured. Big but big moment in the game. TJ Watt potentially out for significant time, did not look good on the field. And, really, he hadn't made a massive impact in the game because Sewell had him in the back pocket the whole game.
Yeah, that was the first thing he did all game. Apparently, I've seen he's okay. Apparently, it's not his ACL. He hurt his hip. But when we saw it happen, I thought ACL's gone and grabbed his knee. It looked bad. But no, he did nothing before it. And they rested him. They didn't risk him again. And after that, they generate no pressure. Sewell, 23, I think 23 to 28 snaps. No pressures allowed. No quarterback hits, nothing. When he got home, emptied his keys, his wallet. TJ Watt fell out of his pocket too. Great performance for his first real game at right tackle. And Taylor Decker, we didn't call his name. And if you're an offensive lineman and we don't call your name, that means you did good. If you're not talking about using a lineman, you probably did your job. So as a whole, the line actually looked half decent. No real weaknesses, apart from Jonah Jackson. I think he had a rough day. I think there was a few penalties, gave up the odd pressure, but as a whole, the whole thing, we did okay. Like I say, the defense grew. Now, one of those pressures for Jacobs, I put that down to a drop. I know it was there, but I thought it was a flat-out drop. But if he got credit of a PBU, fair play, because him and AJ Parker, once again, just the studs. And Matt Gilbert, we're literally running a third-team cornerback room, and we're still competing. Realistically, I'd say a lot of these guys won't start on a lot of teams. But we haven't started them all, and they held their own.
So Mark Gilbert was picked up from the Steelers practice squad. He was an undrafted free agent from Duke. He was a 3-star recruit. He was a redshirt senior. And he had a 2017 campaign where he had first team All ACC honors. He was the leading vote getter among cornerbacks in the ACC in 2017. But then he had injuries in 2018, 19, and 20, pretty much tanking his draft stock. But clearly, from the fact that, he was so highly rated in 2017, the ability's there, and you can see that. It's just he lacks in a bit of experience. And that showed at the end of the game when he got burned in coverage by Deontay Johnson. But you saw the ability of him to quickly react. I mean, Johnson's catching that with momentum, and Gilbert is on his heels. And yet he still manages to react to force a fumble to save the game. I mean, fantastic heads-up play. The cornerback room in general had a really good day.
Yeah, if you're a Steelers fan, you'd be absolutely mortified. The ball security was atrocious. But you've got to be there to make the play. Gilbert, I think he had 5 or 6 interceptions in a year, and then he had surgery on his hip. It was a hip injury that ended his college career. He missed 2 whole years. Like I say, went undrafted, but he's 6'1". He's got a big frame, and like I say, He gave up that. The coverage was okay. He gave up the reception, and then the receiver stopped dead, turned back into the field, was swinging that ball around like a loaf of bread, not a new ball baby. Wasn't very protected. Gilbert comes in behind, punches it out. I think, or a warrior, I think, got the recovery. Like I say, they were there. I think it's one of the things like he kind of knew he'd ballsed up giving up this reception because that was a huge time. They were going into field goal range. They were nearly there. They could have won the game, but he didn't give up on the play, and that was the best thing to see. This guy could potentially have some starting now. He could start for the rest of the year. He could see really good playing time. Someone that could be a potential gem in the rough. And this cornerback room is kind of just, it's all auditions for guys. They're all having auditions and they're all doing pretty well so far.
They're playing like their career depends on it, and you know what? Maybe it does. So good on them. Going forward chronologically from where I kind of left off and diverted, going into the start of the fourth quarter, and you mentioned that the Lions got away with a couple of calls. There was a really lucky OPI. I mentioned it earlier, that Lions caught offside. I think it was Deshaun Hand kind of jumping the snap. Rudolph chucks it into the end zone, and I think it was James Washington. I'm not 100%, but he touches the cornerback in the shoulder, and it does stop his momentum, but like barely. Like it gains him the smallest advantage possible, and then he catches it. I think he's out of bounds anyway, so I don't think that they could have said, oh, it would have been a touchdown otherwise or whatever. But two things here: one, nice that we got the call there, but two, we accepted the penalty. So it was 3rd and 5 on the 37, I want to say. So it's like a 55-yarder or 53-yarder, maybe, something like that. And we go, well, we want to get them out of field goal range. For the resulting snap, we leave soft coverage defending the sticks and allow them to get 10 to 12 yards. So they don't convert for 4th down. But we gave them back the penalty yardage very, very easily, and in fact risked a conversion. Would you have taken the penalty given that was a defensive play?
No, because we're way too generous on 3rd and 4th down. I would never have given that back because we just suck on 3rd and 4th down. 3rd down, we are awful, but we gave them that motivation they needed by giving them another crack to try get the yardage back. Now, when I saw it in real time, I thought that ball's not catchable. They caught it out of bounds. They might pick this flag up. You watch it slowly, and offensive pass interference, the receiver has to extend his arms and lock the elbows to push away a defender. Now, it's very weak. He puts the right arm out on the shoulder. He goes to extend it as he's falling backwards. The cornerback's not even in a good position. The cornerback is not making a play on the ball. It's sailing towards the line. It was kind of harsh. Some give it, some take it, but I will take it. We got very lucky on that play. We almost made a bad decision, which made the convert, but it was another break. Maybe a break we didn't deserve, but we rode our luck at times and we created our own luck, so we kind of got away with one there again.
And talking about getting away with one, there was a punt that Fox had in the next possession. We went 3 and out. The snap was really high, which caused Fox to delay to get the ball down. Fantastic grab by him as well, which cannot be underrated how high that ball was, and he leapt up to get it. And former Lion Miles Killebrew in his revenge game, it looked like in real time he'd taken him out. I mean, I was thinking it was going to be a roughing the kicker call, and then you see it back on replay, and it's, a touch of the shoulder to his hip. And I mean, it's enough when he's kicking the ball and he's in midair to send him to the ground, but maybe not in the way that kind of Fox sold it a little bit. I think running into the kicker was probably a fair call, which left us 4th and inches on our own 34, and we went for it and Kabinda converted from 4th and inches. Ballsy play, especially given how anemic our offense was at that point. I thought, you know what, actually the risk-reward isn't there at this point. The only thing we're doing is perhaps preventing the Steelers having the ball for 3 snaps. But, fair play to them, we converted. Do you think it was a fair call?
By the letter of law, it's a flag. If a punter is in the air, he was essentially in the air, you can't even breathe on him. Killebrew was a special teams menace. I always loved the guy. He should have known better. He clipped him on the hip, and Jack Fox put in an Oscar performance, span to the ground, clearly made the referees let him know, look, he glanced me. He bought the flag, and going for fourth down, when life gives you lemons, you make lemonade. We went for it. I loved it. And we used Kabinda for once. God, if we'd have put Swift on, we'd have effed that up, and we'd have got stuff down the line. We just managed to push Kabinda over. But no, I love that call.
From this point on, not a huge amount actually happened pretty much in the entire game. Hock had the illegal low block when we actually had a tackle for a loss, which was declined. Really obvious penalty. Like, I just don't know what Hock was doing on that play. Moving on through the game, the Lions continued to burn the clock late on, trying to make sure they had the last possession of the game. They did it in the first half, and it worked. They got the field goal, and then they had the ball back in the second half and prevented the Steelers from having a 2-minute drill, which was great. Lions burned the clock at the end of the second half, and it worked again because the Steelers knelt down to bring it to overtime, but couldn't move the ball down the field. Moving into overtime, we had the play action pass to Amon-Ra that we mentioned earlier. I mean, they dug deep for that one, which is probably a regulation play for most teams. So, it was shocking, but it shouldn't have been really. Gilbert, we mentioned, got burned by Deontay, managed to recover to make the fumble. I mentioned as well that there was a running back screen that Goff should have seen was busted and should have been returned for a touchdown. Fortunately, it wasn't. Holding on Hock killed another drive. No, sorry, holding on Hock did not kill the drive because a wide receiver screen was thrown to Raymond, and there was a field goal kick from 48 from Santoso to win the game, which didn't go through. I want to start by saying the hate for Santoso is completely unnecessary. He did not make a kick from 48 yards. That's bad. Like, you should make that. Most kickers are going to make that. It's in that sort of distance where it's possible you don't make that. And the kick was really bad. Like, you do not see whiffed kicks like that most of the time. But it's becoming personal. Like, the fans are feeling the hurt of being 0-8, and they're reacting to it, and I get that. But I'm sure he wanted to make the kick. Like, it sucks. But he didn't make it. That's bad. He didn't get his foot through the... So I'm looking at the replay. The snap's good, the hold's good, and he kind of almost pulls out of the kick, like he doesn't get his foot through it, like almost like he didn't believe in himself. What do you think, Ryan?
I don't think he should be allowed back in the state of Michigan. I'd have released him this morning. We've been told now we're working out kickers. I'd have cut him this morning. Why on earth do we have a kicker that has a career long of 35? Now, this is going to sound harsh, but how are you a professional kicker if your career long is 35 yards? What use is that to anyone? And I'm not being funny, but he missed an extra point. Like, no one can justify that. That extra point actually somehow changed the entire game. Yeah. Because the fact that we made the Steelers and the allow and go overtime. If we make that away by one, they have to go for it, and maybe they screw up. But I am going to put this loss on him. Now, I'm not going to... Which is fair. Like,
it is fair.
They paid big bucks to make big kicks. Now, I know the weather wasn't good. We all knew, like, in the Discord and the tweet, we said when it got the field goal, we already said, didn't it? It was missed. We knew full well it was going to miss because the conditions weren't great. But it's only 48 yards. Like, that should be the bare minimum of an average kicker. Now, I'm not, obviously, I'm going to make a joke. I'm not going to get personal, like I say. He's obviously going to move on from him. His days in Detroit are over. He could have been a hero. For a lot of people, he's a villain, but it was just another Detroit way to lose a game, wasn't it? Well, not lose a game, but it was. Obviously, Austin Seibert, we don't know if he'd have made the kick. Probably had the leg to do it. Might not have done it, but it's just one of the things we'll never know. I mean, he probably woke up this morning and felt like crap. So, but no one deserves to feel like that. He probably didn't even want to get out of bed or look on his phone.
Yeah, I mean, just like, it was his fault. I'm not trying to say it wasn't his fault, and to that fan man who says, we need a face to blame and he's easiest to dispose, sure, but you can blame Dan Campbell. for the interesting play calling. You can blame Anthony Lynn for an anemic offensive scheme generally. You can blame Goff for failing to execute throughout the entire game. Like, Santoso missed a kick which directly affected the win-loss, and that's why we're going to focus on that. But there were lots of other factors involved. This game to bed, realistically, we should have won this game. Like, the Steelers should not have been in it. The way we played on special teams, the fact that we were up 3-0 in turnovers, the fact that the Steelers were in it was incredible, really. So, to put it on Santoso, I think, is a bit of a scapegoating. It's just that it directly was a win-loss scenario, or win-tied scenario at that point. It sucks. And he's probably never going to play for the team again. I will say there's a reason he's on the practice squad, and Seibert is the main roster kicker. So, you know what? I'll stop there, because it's not worth spending any more time on a guy who's probably not going to be on the roster any further. What did we have here? So Goff almost intercepted Amon-Ra, and Brown made a breakup. I think we were behind the sticks, so there was a sack by Terrell Evans. And then Swift took his eye off the ball on a short pass to the right-hand side the play before. So I think it's 3rd and 15 at this point. And Goff decides, from his own 20, he's going to uncork a pass he hasn't tried to do all day, because he hasn't got it, and throws a pass directly into coverage. And heads-up play by your 4th-round rookie to knock the ball out of the DB's hands. Save the game.
We got very lucky because he knocked it out and then it fell back down into his hands and he somehow dropped it. If I was a Steeler fan, I'd be livid how he dropped that interception. The Swift really annoyed me because we saw it. It was Freiermuth and Swift did the exact same thing. They both got the reception out to the sideline, and the moment the ball got there, they turned around and looked upfield and dropped it completely. That really, that was such a... It might not have had the thing, but like I say, it was another one that almost killed a drive dead. And you don't expect them, especially in crunch time. You cannot lose focus in crunch time. Yeah, Terrell Edmonds blew Goff up and then threw it behind Amon-Ra. We were so lucky. I cannot believe he actually got through his game without throwing an interception. Count his lucky stars. The holding call that actually, when he did get intercepted, somehow called back, because that was fortunate as well.
Oh, I don't know. Hawk was properly tugged on that one. The one time he actually targets Hawk. Couple of points actually have been brought up in the chat. Dan with the best one, I think. Santoso had been clutch earlier on in the season against the Ravens, making every kick he had in similar situations to this. So I don't think the faith in him was misplaced. He'd shown he had the stones to do it. It was just a bad kick, for whatever reason that was. But enough on that. Det Fan Man says 17-16 would have been a fine outcome too. Sure, if he makes a PAT. But the game changes with the PAT. Suddenly, the plays where... So after that PAT miss, the Steelers made 2 field goals, some of which were 4th and 1, 4th and 2, and they decided to take the kick. But if they're 7 down, and if they're 4 down, maybe they go for that. And then maybe we lose the game in regulation. Because you know what? This defense really did tighten up and play well. But you give them a red zone opportunity, I don't want to know what happens in that situation. So the game ended up the way it did. I think that actually missing the PAT forced the Steelers to play conservatively and actually force overtime. So you don't know what's going to happen with that. Final possession of the game, Steelers have the ball. The Lions take a couple of timeouts early on. Very interesting, this. So a couple of guys in the chat, Maffa and Dan, discussing the fact that this was Dan wanting to win the game and to preserve clock and give themselves a chance. I completely disagree with why that was taken, but I don't necessarily disagree with taking them. I think that the reason that they were taken was that he thought that his defense were absolutely blowing. I think he thought, Jesus, we're going to lose if the next snap happens in the next 10 seconds because they're gassed. So I'm going to give them a chance to take their breath. Now, that's what happened in the Minnesota game, and that's what happened in the Baltimore game, and it didn't work out because we gave the offense chance to form up, call a play with no pressure, they've consistently made these sorts of calls where they're going to take time to try and get the defense right, and it hasn't worked. But I think that's the reason why they called timeouts. I don't think it was about winning the game. I think it was about trying to not lose. But it gave them a bit of time and not have to hurry against the clock. What do you make of the timeout calls, Ryan? It was a big moment in the game.
I think the timeout calls helped both teams, but it helped them more. It took pressure off them because I think at that point they used their last timeout, and then we're stopping the clock, helping them. They're able to be a bit more precise, choose their play a little bit more carefully because they're not rushing to the line. We're helping them out. In the end, we get ridiculously lucky. We get super lucky. Maybe that's because Harris is fresher. Maybe that's because they managed to zone in on what they wanted to do. I guess we'll never know. The timeouts helped both teams. In the end, we managed to scrape it out, and it will go down as they worked. If they'd have taken a long, deep shot with their night, if they'd have worked out and just dialed something up, fantastic, gone deep, and we'd stop the clock for them, everyone would be saying Dan Campbell's a moron. Everyone would have been slating him. It works both ways, doesn't it? And now we stop the clock, and maybe they got that one little second to breathe. Flowers actually had time to get up and get out there. Harris is able to punch the ball out, recover it, seal in the game. I suppose we have to say that's a win for Dan Campbell.
And so on this last possession, after we burned the timeouts, Frymouth converted, and then Rudolph had a bad throw, and then Ebron, who had a couple of catches, the absolute fool, the nutter, made a catch, and then tried to leap over a defender who was about 4 yards away from him and not motoring towards him. Like, he connected with him on the way down. Like, it was so emblematic of his time here as being the oaf that we tried to love and just hated us in return.
Oh yeah, Eric Ebron he's a moron. He is literally running, and the first down marker is maybe 6 yards away from him. He thinks, I'm going to be Superman. I am going to hurdle two guys 4 yards early, and he gets power bombed, and I loved it. I hate Eric Ebron. He's an absolute scrub, and he's not done well anywhere. And probably fans are thinking, you're an idiot. Right? What on earth is he trying to do? He's lucky that ball could have come out. He's so lucky because he got slammed down to the ground, and he fell 2 yards short of the first down marker. So I think that might have been his only reception in the game, and that's what he did with it.
I think he had one in the first quarter, and then that was his second. But it was dire either way. And then so game finishes in a really, really weird way. So about 22 seconds left. Deontay Johnson catches a slant to the left, manages to make a nice side step, gets out of bounds on the right-hand sideline, having run a long way to get there. Makes a couple of yards up. They're at the 38-yard line. You've got one of the best kickers in the NFL who's got a pretty good leg from 55. 15 seconds left. No timeouts. If you get caught in bounds, you're probably not getting your field goal team out there. I'm taking that kick. They decide not to. Try to get another couple of quick yards to Frymouth. And to be fair to them, executes the play, makes the catch, a couple of extra yards. But who was there but Will Harris? I mean, talk about Will Harris in a minute. Would you have kicked there?
Yeah. At worst, if you miss the kick, the Lions don't have any timeouts either. They're not getting a field goal range. It ends as a tie either way. But at least you went for it. They got greedy, and it cost them.
Yeah. And then Will Harris makes the plays. So on the sideline, caught well, trying to head for out of bounds. Will Harris diagnoses the play. I mean, how can you not? It's the most obvious thing in the world, apart from trying to go for the Hail Mary to feign the quick out, which obviously didn't happen. And, great tackle, gets his head in there, forces the fumble. I mean, it's the best play of his Detroit career to save the game, because make no mistake about it, they would have made that kick.
Yeah, it's a game-saving field goal. I don't know what Frymouth's doing. He's called Baby Gronk for a reason. He cannot let go of that ball. Harris puts his head on the ball where he's got to do, but Freiermuth's one had got to get out of bounds quicker. He was too slow, or he's got to hang on. He will woke up this morning knowing that's on me. Like that, he cost them their chance at a game-winning field goal. You can't cough the ball up there at that time. It's just totally unacceptable. But Will Harris came in like a missile. It stayed in bounds as well. I can't believe the ball stayed in bounds. I thought it was going to squirm out. It literally stops on the sideline, and Flowers just keeps it in. Like, you couldn't have asked for any more luck, really. But they presented us with chances to get turnovers. And for a team that doesn't get many turnovers, we said thank you very much, and we gobbled them up. And it saved our bacon.
It really did. That fan man's just said something quite interesting. So I'm just having a look at Game Pass a minute here. Hang on. Yeah, so he said he thought that the Steelers had a timeout at the end, but they didn't. They had burned their last timeout earlier on in that possession. Just wanted to doubly make sure before I said that. But Flowers recovering the fumble as well. The ball was bloody close to the sideline. You have to make sure you're keeping your body controlled out the end. You're talking about Flowers highlight plays, and that's not going to be up there because it's not. But fair play to him, because you screw up the recovery there, the Steelers still have time on the clock to make that field goal. So a crucial element, a moment in the game where he kept his head and made the play. Both players.
Yeah, I can't believe we're saying these two players combined missed a highlight reel 1 and 2. Actually did. If you accidentally bought that ball out of player, the Steelers get the ball back. Like I say, that it's going to be one of the things, like you give them what Freiermuth was trying to do in the end, get the ball out of play and stop the clock. So he has to be sure that he keeps his body in grounds. And like I say, he came up mustard in the dying seconds when it counted.
They did. And then the final play, I think there was 6 or 7 seconds left, and the Lions failed to get out of bounds on the final play. Like, take a quick out and give yourself a chance for the Hail Mary, because you go for the laterals, but why throw it down the middle? Like, if you're going to streak forward, at least head towards the sideline a little bit. Like, I was slightly frustrated that we didn't actually go for the win, because it looked like they didn't try.
No, it looked like we purposely ended the game. Now, that was Benson, wasn't it? Now, obviously the time was on the clock, but God, he looked slow. He didn't even look like he was interested in getting out of bounds. He lumbered there. I was so pissed off. Anyone could have caught that ball. I might have got a bit closer to the touchline, but also horrible play call. Why, like you say, why are you looking in the middle field when you've got to get out of bounds? That's where TJ Hawkinson should have been on a quick out or something. Don't throw it down the fucking. Don't throw it the free safety. Don't throw it in front of linebackers and safeties. The worst outcome is you've got to throw it out of bounds. The best outcome is you catch it and get out of bounds. The unacceptable outcome is you throw it in the middle and you end the game. And we pick C.
Yeah, completely agree. Completely agree. I mean, at the end of the day, the Goff throw to Raymond, it was underthrown. It went 50 yards in the air. Like, Goff does have the arm strength to get it from midfield to the end zone. So let's get to midfield. At least give ourselves a chance. I thought that was a shocking way to end the game. But end the game it did, 16 apiece after overtime. Themes from the game, I wanted to start off with the Lions front 7 hold Harris to 4 yards per carry. And given that Roethlisberger's not in the game, given that Claypool's not in the game, Harris is the main threat. He topped 100 yards, but he did it on almost 30 carries. Like, one of the keys to the game was stopping Najee Harris, and he broke loads of tackles and he ground out a few extra yards and still only got 4 per carry. That's winning football on our part.
Yeah, because surprisingly, we were actually gang tackling. There was actually more than one person meeting him at the ball. We're notorious for missed tackles. He got to the second level, but he didn't get any further. That was the best bit. Harris and Walker came down and they were smacking him. Harris must have been sore after that game because he got hit hard, and he didn't. If I looked at the stats, if I had to guess, he didn't get many first downs on his own. I bet those 100 yards felt like 60, 70. I felt like we bottled him up, and he still had 100 yards. That tells us that we did a good job because it didn't feel effective. It felt like they were just dinking and dunking, chugging along with him, but they weren't moving the chains necessarily.
No, so Najee Harris finished with a 65 grade per PFF, which is not the greatest someone,
Average.
making all those tackles. Sorry, breaking all those tackles. So, I completely agree with that. Second one I wanted to say was that, the Lions' run game dominated, especially in the first half. Swift also ended with 4 yards per carry, but really faltered in the second half when the Steelers actually committed to defending the run. Igwebuike and Jefferson had running touchdowns of 42 and 28 yards respectively on their limited carries. This is the first game that Pittsburgh have conceded two 20-yard plus rushing downs since the AFC Championship game against the Patriots in 2004, and it's the first time they've conceded 200 plus rushing yards to an NFC team since 1992.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that 4 yards per carry for Swift is not that impressive, but you combined it with what Igwebuike and Jefferson provided, and you take into context the fact that they knew we were running the ball because we couldn't pass. 4 yards per carry is a win in context there. It's completely different to Najee Harris when Mason Rudolph has 50 passing attempts.
4 yards per carry is actually good for Swift. When he's actually running, he only averages like 3.6 for 2 years. Like he's a pass catching back. So 4 yards a carry for Swift is a good day's work. 36 touches before yesterday. His highest career touches was 21. He almost doubled his entire workload in one game. Obviously, I'll give credit to Steelers. They adjusted in the second half. They totally sold out with at least 1 or 2 nose tackles, which we didn't do against the Eagles. We didn't adjust. The Steelers did adjust, and they stopped the run. So that really changed in the second half. The handoff was getting made. He was getting the ball, and there was like Cam Hayward was already ready there to smack him in the mouth. So he had a huge game.
Yeah, he really did. The third point I wanted to make was that both teams seemed to beat each other. When the Lions were in winning positions, they decided that they were going to take sacks in crucial positions, that they were going to commit holding penalties or miss field goals or extra points. And the Steelers got into positions and fumbled the ball or decided that they were going to kick field goals on 4th and 1 instead of going for it when we looked like we were being gassed. The Steelers got conservative at the same time as we did. If anything else, to me, Mike Tomlin is regarded as this kind of like godlike coach in some sort of like Belichickian realm of these guys are the best in the league and you can't do better than that. But MCDC did a fairly good impression of him to me. They seem to kind of balance each other out in their play calling, in the way they approach the game. It didn't seem too different to me. Tomlin lacked stones.
Yep. Tomlin he had no ball whatsoever. He looked nervous. Like I say, we're one of the worst teams in the league on 3rd and 4th down, and they're going for field goals and not punching it in with a 230-pound, 6'2" running back because they're too conservative. They're scared to turn the ball over on downs. And you've got Najee Harris. That goes to Mike Tomlin. Mike Tomlin is making that decision, and I agree that we both hurt ourselves. The Lions and the Steelers were self-destructive. We got penalties. They missed wide open receivers, and they took points when they should have been extending drives. 2 teams that just were too scared to lose, but weren't brave enough to win. And unfortunately, like I say, this isn't college. You can tie in the NFL, and that was the perfect recipe for the perfect storm. One hell of a game, whichever way you want to look at it.
It was a hell of a game. We've talked about the secondary playing hard with the fumbles and the PBUs, and we've talked about 6 offensive linemen. It was just said, actually, by Depth Fan Man in the chat. The Steelers improved their run defense by injuring Matt Nelson. But that overlooks the fact that Will Holden came in as the 6th man and actually ended up being graded higher than Nelson did. So whoever the 6th man was, it seemed to work really well for us, and I hope that we see that going forward. Because you know what? There's absolutely no need in having Darren Fells in there if all he's going to do is block. Because Fells is a great receiving tight end in the red zone. We never used him to do that. We only used him for blocking. But if we can get that blocking from Nelson and Holden, Fells being cut was a blessing for us, I think.
Yeah, it was expensive, and we very rarely get to the red zone. So he was just a wasted commodity on good salary. And like, it's one of the things. It's hard. It's difficult for defenses to stop. If you want to bring an extra lineman in, you have to bring someone into the box. and you risk someone on the back end. Like, if you're going to go ultra stop the run because we're showing run, like, you're cutting your nose to spite your face. And eventually we are going to rip off a pass when they stack the box. So it's choose your poison.
Yeah.
And it worked for us.
Yeah, very much. I'd love to see big man touchdown with Matt Nelson. I think that would stick it to some of the guys who've had a go at him in the past, ourselves included. We have loved to hate on him for giving up potentially the most pressures in the league so far. It feels like it, even if potentially it's not quite true. But he's not been a great tackle. But we've been partial to big man touchdown over the years, and report eligible as a sixth lineman. I can see that happen. I can see that happen for Sewell, actually. To be honest, more athletic. I can see him catchable. I want to see that. It's the sort of play that this team's going to run. Last point I wanted to hit on is a very, very major point for this team in terms of his success, in terms of it actually winning games going forward, is TJ Hawkinson. 3 flags, I think 2 declines, only 1 accepted. 1 target. Was it 1 target? It felt like 1 target.
Yeah. That was it, yeah.
1 target, no receptions. We either ignored him or, I don't know what happened, but if we're going to use him as a blocking tight end, well, you have to try and grade well as a blocking tight end, but he was the lowest graded player on the team. He graded lower than Jared Goff in this game. Like, it's shocking to me. And what's wrong with TJ Hawkinson? He started this season in electric form. People were talking about him as being one of the premier tight ends in this league. We all know he's one of those guys. Why is he not living up to that at the moment, do you think?
I don't know. He looks disinterested. I think he's sulking. I think the lack of targets. I think he's playing with a frown on his face. The penalties are the reason he ain't getting targets. If you're going to keep consistently getting us further and further behind the chains, and don't expect to have the ball thrown your way when we start to throw it. Right now, he's pissing me off. I think he's pissing off a lot of Lion fans. A lot of people are wondering now, why didn't we trade him? Like, he probably had trade value. We chose to keep him here because he's supposed to be that bridging that gap to the next level. He sure as hell ain't showing it right now. The only thing he's doing for the last, I think, 3 weeks is he's hurting us. He's got like 6 penalties, getting called for false starts, for holds. He's like coming into his 3rd year. He's not a rookie. He shouldn't be getting called for penalties like that. He should be able to move when the ball is going or count the snap. I don't know. I don't know if he's just stropping. I don't know if he's throwing his toys out the pram because he doesn't like the offense. But right now, if he's going to carry on playing like this, he sure as hell won't be here in a year.
Yeah, I completely agree with that in terms of if he doesn't pick up from here. I do think it's a down point, but I do worry about whether that down point is going to persist through the rest of the season, because I wonder whether he's going to be one of the ones who's been most affected by the fact that this team is 0-8-1, when 0-8 at the time. I feel like he is beginning to doubt the season. He's the first guy on the roster that I've seen where I kind of think that maybe they're starting to lose the dressing room a little bit, the locker room, sorry, English terminology, but he's one of the guys who's going to be that sort of guy that people rally around. He's got to play better, or people are going to start questioning whether they're buying in.
For me, but the way I've always seen it is a tight end, an elite tight end, is a luxury. Like, it's in a luxurious position that when a team is going well, like look at Kelsey last night. He was absolutely phenomenal for the Chiefs. That was one of the best performances I've seen all year. He motivates them, he picks them up, he makes sure they all know what they're doing. I don't see that right now. Hawkinson right now is walking with his head down. Like, when things suddenly aren't going our way, he looks like he's like sulking, his head's dropping a bit, and it just looks bad. Like, if he's got any aspirations of being a captain, like, hopefully one day he's going to be a captain of Lions. This is not how he's going to get there, and I agree. I think he's obviously, the lack of production in the passing offense hurts him. It hurts him directly. It hurts his figures. He don't get targets, but suck it up, man. Just pull your pants up and accept that you're a blocker. You may get limited things, but when it happens, make it count. But when you're not getting the ball, stop pissing about line of scrimmage. Stop holding. Like, when things aren't going your way, control what you can control. Right now, he's not doing it, and it just looks bad. And he's making everyone around him doubt him in his attitude towards the season, and also doubt like if he's going to have any long-term future here. I agree. I think this could drastically drop off a cliff for the rest of the year. He could start to be a nuisance. He could start to be a bit of a Debbie Downer in the locker room. And the moment that happens, you have to question, like, do we want this guy here? Is he a fair weather tight end when things are going great and he's getting receptions? Or tight end you? I love tight end you. I'm one of the Iowa Stars. When things aren't going well right now, like, I don't want to be here. I'm one of the best in the league. If I was in Kansas City, I'd be putting up numbers every week. If I was on a great team, I'd be rocking out. I'd be putting up huge stats. Well, you're not, TJ Hawkinson. You're on the Detroit Lions. We're not very good. We're not winning games. Accept it and stop hurting us, because it's very noticeable when a tight end gets called for penalties all the time, and it's becoming unacceptable. And that's a message directly to you, and that's because I care.
So, I mean, Hawkinson had the lowest amount of separation in running routes this game. Now, that could have been affected by the play calling. It could have been affected by the fact that I do think they were relying on him as a bit more of a blocking tight end in this game than anything else. But 1.58 yards per route run. Brock Wright was higher, 1.88 in the tight end room. I mean, it's shocking. But Khalif Raymond, 3.93. It's not like the receivers weren't getting free. If you compare it to someone like Fryermuth at 3.99 or Ebron, 4.65, like these guys are getting a lot more, separation than our guys are. Hawkinson, when he is running routes, needs to be getting more free than that. And I know they've got Devin Bush as a linebacker, and I know they've got Minka Fitzpatrick as safeties of people who might be covering him. But you're TJ Hawkinson. You are, by reputation, potentially the fourth best tight end in the league. Act like it. Pick it up. I do not think he's going to drop off, because I think that he has got a backbone. I just think it was a down game, but it just puts the seed of doubt in my mind. I expect him to bring it back against the Browns team that potentially struggles against tight ends a little bit. Hunter Henry did an absolute number on them for the Patriots in the most recent game against the Browns, where they got absolutely torched. And there's a quick question just before we finish from Dan, saying, with the Browns defense, having a look at how this game went, what changes would you suggest to Dan, and cheers for a great show? Having a look at what we did in this game, holding the Steelers to 16 points, but perhaps a slight lack of execution on the Steelers' part. Looking at what Mac Jones does well. Not Mac Jones, so having a look at what Baker Mayfield does well, assuming he's coming back into this game, which I do think he will. What do you think we need to do to stop this team?
To stop the Browns, you have to stop Nick Chubb, which for me, we need to do what we did again this game. We need Will Harris and we need Tracy Walker closer to the line, because he's going to get through. He's going to get to the second level. We need 2, 3, 4 guys gang tackling. We need noses on the ball. We've got to play as a team closer to the line of scrimmage. We need to replicate that run defense that we've just seen. We need to see. We've got to play Derek Barnes. 17% snaps, and I know they said it. Dan Campbell's come out and said that it was just a game plan, but the guy's consistently getting a good PFF grade and he's playing minimal snaps, so it's kind of hard to warrant not playing more snaps. I think we do need more athleticism across the middle, and like I said, the linebackers, we're going to have to be able to play some more coverage, because is it Austin Hooper that's there?
Yeah,
is he the tight end? He's reasonably athletic, so I think we're going to have to worry about tight end again, because we're going to see those tight ends that get yards of separation, 3-4 yards. So we need some more athleticism there.
They're two tight ends, and I think Hooper caught a touchdown in the most recent game. Hooper, but the other tight end is David Njoku, who has had a few really long touchdowns this year. So they're going to be threats in the passing game for sure. Just stop the run. So Chubb and I think is it Demetric Felton? Were not Felton. Yeah. Is it Felton? No. Who's the other?
Oh,
so two guys on the COVID-19 list, and I can't remember who it is.
Is it Dearness? Is it Dearness Jackson?
It is Demetric Felton. I was right. Chubb and Felton on the COVID-19 list. They're both vaccinated, but just missed out on the most recent game. So we expect them to be back for this coming game. So Chubb will play, and Felton's been really good when Chubb hasn't played. So, and never mind Hunt. And I don't know what his status is, but they could all be back. If you can stop the run, you've got a chance. Because Baker in his career has proven that it is in his locker to win the game with his arm, but it's inconsistent. You have a chance to put the game on his arm and just say, if you can beat us, well done, I shake your hand. But you cannot let Chubb run the game. If Chubb runs the game, you've got no chance. So, changes that I would make. We played a lot of 4-3 in this game, and it actually worked really well in terms of stopping Najee Harris. Chubb is another guy who breaks tackles really well and runs refined, like little jump cuts and what have you. I play a little bit more 4-3. It seemed to work quite well in terms of run defense. I normally would call for more 3-4. I like what Alim McNeil does. I like what John Penasini does, who both played well in this most recent game. Maybe get them both in as two nose tackles in a 4-3. That's what I'd like to see a bit more of in this game. And you know what? I'd still pick us to lose because the Browns are potentially the best roster for me in the NFL. But it gives us a hope.
No, I agree. Let's stack the front. Let's go heavy set front. Let's go strong in the box. Stop Nip Chubb, like you say. And even if Baker returns, we know the dude's playing at 67% health. Even he's said that he's still got the torn labrum. He still comes up wincing at least once a game. I'm more scared of Case Keenum than I am Baker Mayfield because I know Baker Mayfield has got more mental errors in him. For everything good he does, he will do something stupid. He will throw a ridiculous. He'll have one of those games where he'll just be dreadful. And if pressure, I just want to get after him because I feel like we know he's got those issues in him. You can bring them out of him. If you can hurry him or fluster him, he doesn't care where that ball goes when it leaves his hand, because sometimes it leaves his hand and he just forgets about it. I just would love to see we struggled obviously with ends and healthy. Hopefully get Bryant back, a bit more Charles Harris, a bit more Aquara. I would love to see, say, forefront, maybe a safety blitz if Walker's back, but try wrap up, let's say, just dial up some extra pressure, especially using a 4-man front. I want to stop the run and get after Baker Mayfield. Easier said than done, but
in our WhatsApp chat, which we don't use too often because we've kind of moved a bit to Discord a bit, but showing the guys some love in there, John has just put a question out there. So Rob has just shown us that Rappaport has said Blake Bortles has just been released from the Packers practice squad. And John comes in with the question, is Bortles better than Jared Goff? And I don't know the answer to that question. I really don't, because Bortles is a quarterback that makes horrific errors. But he goes for it. He takes a chance. And at the moment, given what's happening with this offense, that's a possession that I prize. Someone who is going to go out there and try and win a game rather than lose it. Or, sorry, try and not lose the game. I'm kind of torn on that a little bit.
I think I'm in two camps. Is Bortles' career on the line completely and he will do anything and gunsling it? Absolutely. Is the ceiling maybe a little bit higher, but is he too rusty to be thrown into a bad team instantly? Because when was the last time Bortles played a game?
Oh, ages ago. Ages ago.
Can he just turn it on and off? Who knows? Or will it take a few weeks with him? What I think the Lions are doing is, I think we're waiting for Tim Boyle. I think if you saw Goff hurt, wincing in pain, and you still won't put Blowin, or Bluff, however you pronounce it,
Yeah, Blau.
I'm not saying Dan Campbell doesn't like Blau, but he does not trust him. He
No.
will not put him in at any cost. But the moment Tim Boyle is healthy, it would not surprise me to see him, if we're getting blown out, give him a whole fourth quarter, because he doesn't know what we've got in Tim Boyle. But he's seen enough from Blau to know he's not the guy. And he's returned to practice now. We may well see him active in the next week. He could very well be here this week. He seems like he's getting up to speed. The moment we need a new quarterback, it will not be Blau, it'll be Tim Boyle. And, well, pre-season, didn't see a lot of him. He's really an unknown entity. But we will see another quarterback, maybe start again this year. It's more likely going to be Boyle than Blau.
Yeah, definitely agree. Right, I think that's the last of our questions, so let's bring this quickly to a close. We've been going for some time. Just to quickly say, if there are some Detroiters, if there are some Michiganders out there, I booked my flights. I am coming for Lions Thanksgiving game. I am coming, hopefully, for OSU at UMich. If you want to meet up, have a beer, I would love that. If you've got any suggestions for what I need to do when I get out there, something I must see, I've never been before. So, I kind of know that the Henry Ford Museum is going to be up there and the Motown Museum is going to be up there and, there's going to be a couple of other things. People keep telling me, even though they probably don't know that I'm a bit of a gambler, to go to the casino in Greektown. That is absolutely on the list. If you've got any other suggestions, I'd love to hear them because I'm going to need to make the most of my 4 days there. Really appreciate that if you have any suggestions. Otherwise, next episode on Thursday, the 18th of November, it's the Lions at Browns preview show, so a bit more on the Browns coming later on in the week. Later on in the week, we're going to be talking college football. We obviously previewed that a bit, week 11. There's going to be a bit more from Ryan and Ant with that. Don't forget to join our Discord. We're going to have little discussions that go all the way through the game. Kicks off 5:45 UK time, 12:45 ET. Give us a DM on Twitter. We'll send you a link. You can join us. It'd be great. Cheers to Mike for the suggestion. Casino apparently is great. Corktown's good. I will go there. Luke G, thank you for joining us on here too. Socials, add us, rate us, subscribe, all the fun stuff. Raw the Lions UK, YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and the Facebook group. You can see one of our podcast heroes, Ryan Farden, who is out in Pittsburgh. He's going to be in Cleveland, and I'm going to meet him for the first time. I've not met him before. I'm going to meet him for the first time in Detroit for Thanksgiving. You can see photos of him enjoying life on Detroit Lions Fans UK One Pride Worldwide. On the web, rawthelionsuk.com. I'm a bit slack with doing my articles, I must admit, but there is going to be new stuff coming out, especially for the draft. If you want draft content, that will be coming in the off-season, rawthelionsuk.com. Just remains for me to thank everyone for watching, for listening on the audio pods. To Ryan, my co-host, thank you for being here, my man. I'm Matthew Turner. We will see you for the next episode on Thursday. Let's go, Lions. One Pride.
One Pride.